Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into metacognition.
Thinking about thinking.
Yeah, exactly. That whole thinking about thinking thing. And we'll be connecting it to universal design for learning.
UDL.
UDL, you got it. And how they work together to make you a more effective learner. Our deep dive today is using excerpts from a book on UDL and Blended Learning.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it's packed with some seriously insightful stuff. I'm excited to get into it.
The really cool part is that this isn't just theory. We're going to uncover practical strategies that you can actually use to boost your learning, no matter what you're studying.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So imagine a student who was totally struggling in school. They felt lost, overwhelmed, like they just couldn't keep up. But then they discovered metacognitive techniques.
Okay.
Basically, they learned how to learn.
Right.
The book talks about how this student started setting clear goals, breaking down complex tasks, and constantly checking their understanding.
That's great.
And guess what? Their grades shot up, and they actually started enjoying learning.
Nice. That's a perfect example of how metacognition can be a total game changer. But here's the thing. If those skills aren't developed early on, it becomes even more important to teach them explicitly as students get older.
I see.
Especially with the rise of blended and online learning, where so much responsibility falls on the student to manage their own learning.
Right. It's like you're suddenly the captain of your own ship. You need a map, a compass, and the skills to navigate.
Exactly. And those metacognitive skills are your navigation tools. They give you the power to chart your course, monitor your progress, and adjust your approach as you go hold. Think of it like this metacognition helps you become the CEO of your own learning, making decisions about how, when, and what you learn.
Okay, so how does UDL come into play? Is it like the shipyard where we build these metacognitive skills?
Ooh, that's a great analogy. UDL provides the framework and tools to construct those skills. It's about designing flexible learning environments that offer multiple pathways to understanding. This flexibility allows learners to experiment, find what works best for them, and in turn become more aware of their own learning processes. That's how those metacognitive muscles get toned.
I love that metacognitive muscles of the book really stresses that these skills need to be exercised and challenged just like any other muscle.
Yeah.
You don't get ripped by sitting on the couch.
Exactly. And that's where UDL comes in with its emphasis on multiple means of representation, engagement, and action and expression.
Okay.
For example, offering content in different formats like text, audio, or video allows learners to choose what works best for their learning style. This process of choosing and experimenting is itself a metacognitive exercise.
It's like figuring out which workout routine gives you the best results.
Yeah.
You try different things, pay attention to what feels right, and gradually develop a deeper understanding of how your body responds.
Exactly. And just like a good workout routine has a warm-up, UDL recognizes the importance of setting the stage for learning. This brings us to the first phase of metacognition, setting goals.
Okay.
Now, goal setting might sound simple, but it's often done poorly, leading to frustration and disengagement.
I think a lot of us have experienced that feeling of setting a vague goal, like I want to learn more about history, and then feeling completely lost because we haven't defined what that actually looks like or how to get there.
Right. The book emphasizes the importance of not just identifying the what, like learning more about history, but also outlining the how.
Okay.
What specific steps will you take? How will you measure your progress? And how will you know when you've achieved your goal?
It's like planning a road trip. You wouldn't just say, I want to go to the beach and then start driving randomly.
Yeah.
You'd map out a route, identify landmarks along the way, and have a clear destination in mind.
And just like a good road trip, a well-defined goal should be connected to something that truly motivates you. What's the driving force behind your desire to learn this particular thing? How does it align with your values and interests?
I think that's where the busy work issue comes in, when students don't see the relevance or connection to their own lives.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to find the motivation to put in this effort.
Absolutely. And that's why UDL encourages teachers to create learning experiences that are relevant, authentic, and connected to real-world contexts.
Right.
It's all about showing students why this knowledge matters and how it can be applied in meaningful ways.
So we've set our goals, mapped out our route, and fueled up with motivation.
Yeah.
Now we're cruising down the learning highway. But how do we know if we're actually learning and understanding the material?
This brings us to the second phase of metacognition, metacomprehension.
Okay.
It's the process of actively monitoring your understanding as you go, not just passively absorbing information. Think of it like checking your GPS every now and then to make sure you're still on track.
So it's about asking yourself, do we really get this? Does this make sense to me? Can I explain this concept to someone else?
Exactly. And UDL supports this by providing multiple means of action and expression, giving learners different ways to demonstrate their understanding, allows them to choose methods that align with their strengths and preferences, further encouraging self-awareness and metacognitive thinking.
The book suggests a really practical self-assessment routine. Weekly reflection on your work, rating your mastery on a scale, and then justifying those ratings.
I like that.
Yeah.
That simple routine encourages consistent self-reflection and helps students develop a more accurate understanding of their strengths and weaknesses.
It's like using a fitness tracker. You're constantly checking your progress, making adjustments to your routine, and celebrating milestones along the way.
And just like those fitness trackers, use charts and graphs to visualize your progress.
Yeah.
Metacomprehension can be enhanced with visual aids. The book even mentions using emojis to represent different levels of understanding, making it more engaging and accessible, especially for younger learners.
That's such a great idea. It makes the whole process less intimidating and more approachable.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've set goals, monitored our understanding, and hopefully we're well on our way to achieving those goals. But what happens when we reach the end of the road trip?
That's where meta-reflection comes in the final phase of our metacognitive journey. It's all about looking back on the journey, analyzing what went well, what could have been improved, and how those lessons can inform future learning experiences.
It's like that feeling when you get back from an amazing vacation. You're not just unpacking your suitcase. You're unpacking all the experiences, the memories, and the lessons learned.
That's a great way to put it. Meta-reflection encourages us to view our learning experiences not just as isolated events, but as stepping stones on a continuous path of growth.
The book suggests some really powerful reflection questions like, what worked? What didn't? And what would you do differently next time?
Yeah, those questions might seem simple,
Right.
but they prompt deep thinking. They encourage us to identify patterns in our learning, recognize our strengths, and pinpoint areas where we need to adjust our approach.
I love the concept of the growth over time activity mentioned in the book. It encourages students to compare two pieces of work from different points in time to really see their progress.
It's such a powerful visual reminder that learning is a process. There will be bumps along the way, but with consistent effort and reflection, we can see incredible growth.
And speaking of seeing growth, let's shift gears and talk about assessment. How does assessment fit into this whole metacognition and UDL picture?
Assessment plays a crucial role, but it's important to remember that assessment isn't just about assigning grades when done well. It's a powerful tool for promoting metacognition and supporting learner growth. UDL provides a framework for designing assessments that are truly meaningful and inclusive.
So instead of that dreaded feeling of, oh no, a test, it's more about, okay, this is an opportunity to show what I've learned and see how far I've come.
Exactly. And it all starts with pre-assessment or diagnostic assessment.
Okay.
This is like taking inventory of what students already know and where they might need some extra support.
The book mentions some creative pre-assessment methods like connect the dots, where students link concepts, a 90-second brain dump, where they write everything they know about a topic, and even 2-minute talks, where they share their understanding verbally.
Those are great examples. It's about moving beyond traditional quizzes and tests and finding engaging ways to gauge prior knowledge.
And then throughout the learning journey, we have formative assessments. I like to think of these as checkpoints along the way.
That's a perfect analogy. Formative assessments provide valuable feedback to both the learner and the teacher. They're informal, ongoing, and can be easily integrated into daily instruction.
The book emphasizes that formative assessments shouldn't be about grades. It's about gathering information to guide instruction and provide feedback in real time.
Exactly. Think of activities like the 3-2-1, where students identify 3 things they learned, 2 things they found interesting, and 1 question they still have, or simply asking students to explain this to a friend, which encourages them to articulate their understanding.
It's all about creating a constant feedback loop so students can monitor their progress and make adjustments as they go. It reinforces that metacognitive muscle we were talking about earlier.
Now, at the end of the learning journey, we have summative assessments, which are designed to measure what students have learned and how they can apply that knowledge.
We're all familiar with traditional summative assessments, like standardized tests, but the book highlights the value of alternative and authentic assessments, which are particularly beneficial for diverse learners.
Alternative assessments allow students to showcase their understanding in various ways, whether it's through presentations, projects, or portfolios. It's about recognizing that not everyone excels at traditional paper and pencil tests.
And authentic assessments go a step further by asking students to apply their knowledge and skills in real-world contexts.
The book dives into project-based learning, or PBL, as a prime example of authentic assessment.
Okay.
Students tackle a challenging problem or question, conduct research, collaborate with their peers, and create a real-world product or solution.
It sounds like a much more engaging and meaningful way to assess learning than just filling in bubbles on a test sheet.
It is, and it aligns perfectly with UDL's emphasis on student agency and ownership in the learning process.
Now let's talk about grades because, let's be honest, they can be a source of anxiety for both students and teachers.
Absolutely. The book shares a story about a student named Caitlin who experienced what's called gotcha. Her teacher would deduct points for minor errors or formatting issues without providing clear feedback or opportunities for revision.
That's so frustrating. It creates a sense of fear and makes students focus on just getting the right answer instead of actually understanding the material.
Right. It highlights the need for a more collaborative and transparent approach to assessment. Instead of viewing grading as something done to students, it should be a process done with learners.
The book introduces the concept of side-by-side assessment. Students work with the teacher to co-create rubrics and evaluation criteria.
This helps students see the direct connection between their work and the evaluation. It also encourages self-reflection and empowers them to take ownership of their learning.
So it's not about trying to trick students or catch them making mistakes. It's about providing clear expectations, meaningful feedback, and opportunities for growth. It sounds like a much more supportive and empowering approach to assessment.
It is, and that brings us back to the core of what we've been discussing today, the power of metacognition in UDL to transform the learning experience.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from exploring the different phases of metacognition to diving deep into UDL principles and unpacking various assessment strategies.
But the most important takeaway is this metacognition isn't some mystical ability reserved for a select few. It's a set of skills that anyone can develop and strengthen with practice and the right support.
And UDL provides that support by offering a framework for designing learning environments that are flexible, engaging, and inclusive.
It's about creating a space where every learner feels valued, challenged, and empowered to reach their full potential.
I love that. It's about shifting our mindset from teaching to the average to designing for everyone.
Exactly, and that's where the concept of flexible learning environments comes in.
Ah, yes. We haven't really touched on that yet. How does that connect to everything we've been talking about?
Well, flexible learning environments are a core principle of UDL. They go hand in hand with fostering metacognition.
So it's not just about having a comfy chair and good lighting.
Not exactly, although those things can be helpful. It's more about offering choices, providing different pathways to learning, and allowing students to have some control over how they learn.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, it's about recognizing that everyone learns differently and providing options to cater to those individual needs and preferences.
Precisely, and when learners have that agency to choose how they learn, they're more likely to engage in those metacognitive processes we talked about earlier.
It makes sense if you have the freedom to choose your own adventure. You're going to be more invested in the journey and more aware of what's working and what's not.
Right. It's about shifting the responsibility for learning from the teacher to the student, empowering them to become active agents in their own learning.
And that's where the role of the teacher becomes even more important. It's about guiding students, providing support, and creating that culture of metacognition.
Exactly. It's about explicitly teaching those metacognitive strategies, providing feedback that encourages reflection, and modeling those thinking processes ourselves.
It's about embracing the idea that learning is a continuous journey, a process of exploration, reflection, and refinement.
Beautifully said. And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into metacognition and UDL.
But before we sign off, we have one final thought-provoking question for you, our listeners.
How could you apply even one of these strategies to your own learning or teaching this week?
Think about a small, actionable step you can take to incorporate metacognition UDL principles or a specific assessment strategy into your practice.
We encourage you to continue exploring these concepts and to share your experiences with us. We'd love to hear how you're applying these ideas in your own learning journeys.
We're so excited to hear about your discoveries and insights. And remember, every journey starts with a single step.
So take that step this week and see where it leads you. You might be surprised by what you learn about yourself and about the power of metacognition.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into metacognition and UDL. We hope you found it informative, engaging, and inspiring.
Until next time, keep those metacognitive muscles flexed and never stop learning.
Happy learning, everyone.